I never thought I'd feel so stuck. Like my feet are glued to the floor, no matter how hard I try to move forward. It's this constant pressure, a weight I carry every single day, even when I'm asleep. Money, or the lack of it, colors everything in my life. It's the background noise in every conversation, the shadow behind every decision. Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever breathe freely again. I'm 27, working a job that used to feel like a stepping stone but now just feels like treading water. The paychecks come, but somehow, they disappear faster than I can understand. Rent, utilities, groceries, the ever-rising cost of gas, they all chip away at my paycheck like a slow erosion. The economic environment hasn't been kind. Inflation keeps climbing, prices soar, and wages barely budge. It's like the world expects me to juggle with one hand tied behind my back. Every morning, I wake up and map out my day through the lens of money. What bills are due? Can I afford the coffee I crave, or should I settle for water? Will I skip lunch today to save a few bucks? It's exhausting, making these tiny, constant calculations that add up to a kind of quiet desperation. There's no room for mistakes. One unplanned expense, a flat tire, a medical bill, a phone repair, and everything threatens to collapse. I've gotten really good at ignoring my phone notifications, hoping it's not another reminder of money owed or payments due. The emotional toll is worse than I expected. There's a gnawing anxiety that sits just below the surface, like a steady hum of worry. I lie awake at night, running through scenarios of what happens if I lose my job, if rent goes up again, if the car breaks down. I try not to panic, but sometimes the weight feels unbearable. It's hard to explain to people who haven't been here, the shame of not being able to keep up, the frustration of working so hard but feeling like you're always behind. I've had to put so many dreams on hold. Going back to school, saving for a place of my own, traveling, those things feel like luxuries now. I remember before all this, when I thought I'd have time and money to explore the world, to build a life on my own terms. Now, it's about survival. Getting through the month without going further into debt feels like a victory. I postpone therapy sessions because I can't justify the expense, even though I know it would help. I've shelved plans to see friends or attend events because every dollar counts. Sometimes I get angry, at the system, at the rising costs, at the fact that my paycheck barely moves while rent and bills climb relentlessly. It feels like the rules are stacked against people like me. I'm working, trying to be responsible, but the goalposts keep shifting. It's disheartening to feel trapped in a loop where expenses grow faster than income. Like I'm on a treadmill that won't slow down. But I've found ways to cope. I've started cooking almost everything at home, learning to stretch my groceries with creative recipes. I've gotten more intentional about where and how I spend money, cutting subscriptions, hunting for discounts, avoiding impulse buys. I talk openly with close friends about money struggles, even though it's uncomfortable. That honesty helps, even if just a little. And I remind myself that this phase won't last forever. I try to focus on small wins, paying off a credit card, finally fixing a leaking faucet myself, making it through the month without emergency borrowing. At the core, there's still hope. I cling to it because it's all I have sometimes. Hope that someday, my income will catch up, that the economy will stabilize, that I'll breathe easier and dream bigger again. I picture a future where I can invest in myself, education, travel, therapy, where I'm not defined by my financial stress. But right now, the reality is this tightrope walk, balancing survival and dreams, weighed down by a system that feels designed to hold me back. I'm learning to be patient, to find strength in small moments, to accept that it's okay to be vulnerable about this. Because pretending everything's fine doesn't change anything. The pressure is real, but so is my will to keep pushing forward, even when it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. It's been like this for a while now, this constant pressure, this invisible weight that sits on my chest every single morning before I even open my eyes. I lie there, staring at the ceiling, and I can already hear the quiet hum of my brain running through the numbers, bills, and expenses that seem to multiply overnight. It's exhausting. Like I'm stuck on a treadmill that won't slow down, no matter how fast I run or how hard I push. I'm 27, and the truth is, I don't remember what it feels like to be free of this kind of worry. It's not that I haven't tried. I work full-time, juggling a job that barely pays enough to cover rent, groceries, and the never-ending list of unexpected expenses that crop up like weeds. Last month it was the car repair, the month before that the phone screen cracked and I couldn't afford to fix it immediately. I make what's considered a decent salary in my town, but with rent rising faster than I get raises, it's like my paycheck just evaporates before I even get to enjoy it. The economy outside feels like a storm I'm stuck inside of. Every time the news flashes about inflation going up again, or gas prices climbing, my stomach tightens. It's like they're sneaking up on me, stealing bits of my paycheck before I've even spent a cent. And yet, I can't stop thinking about the future, because if I don't, then what am I even working for? But the harder I think about it, the heavier it gets, this looming sense that I'm running out of time. The house I hope to buy someday? The trip abroad I dreamt about when I was a kid? They feel further and further away, like mirages on the horizon I'll never reach. Most days, I try to make choices that feel safe, responsible. I cook at home more often than not, which isn't fun but it helps save a little. I don't go out much, no fancy dinners, no weekend splurges, no new clothes just for fun. Even when friends ask me to come out, I hesitate. It's not just about the money, it's the emotional toll of watching everyone else live a little more freely while I'm stuck calculating every penny. The guilt hits me too, like I'm failing somehow because I can't keep up. There's this pressure that society doesn't talk about enough, the pressure to appear okay, to maintain a certain image while your bank account screams otherwise. Sometimes I wear this thin mask of I've got it all together, but underneath, I'm constantly worried about what will happen if I lose my job or if an emergency comes up. I've had nights where I lie awake wondering if I'll ever get ahead, or if I'm doomed to just tread water forever. The emotional exhaustion from this kind of stress is invisible but real. It feels like carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones all day, every day. Some days, the weight crushes me, and I just want to cry or scream. But instead, I put on a brave face because I don't want anyone else to worry. It's lonely in this struggle because it feels like no one else really understands what it's like to be trapped in this endless cycle. I do have coping mechanisms, small things that remind me I'm still human beneath this financial grind. Sometimes I write in a journal, pouring out the frustration and hope all mixed up together. Other times, I walk in the park near my apartment and just breathe, watching the trees sway and pretending for a moment that I'm somewhere else, somewhere peaceful. Those moments don't fix the problems, but they remind me that I'm still alive, still dreaming. Speaking of dreams, they're what keep me going even when I'm running on empty. I used to dream about becoming an artist, painting and selling my work, maybe even opening a small gallery someday. Now, I barely have the time or money for paint or canvases. That dream feels like it's gathering dust in a forgotten corner of my mind. I've had to postpone plans for graduate school, a career change, or even moving to a city where the job market might be better because the reality is, I can't afford the risk. Each postponed dream feels like a small death, a quiet surrender to the system that's built to keep people like me just barely afloat. But here's the raw truth, despite all this, I still hope. I hold on to the belief that someday, things will change. That the sacrifices I'm making now aren't in vain. That one day I'll break free from this cycle, breathe without the weight pressing down, and maybe finally live a little. I want to tell myself that the system that traps me isn't stronger than my will to fight. Because if I lose hope, then what's left? For now, I keep pushing, one day at a time, holding on to small moments of joy and the stubborn hope that life will get better. Because even trapped inside this storm, there's a flicker of light that refuses to go out. This is my story, one of quiet struggle, relentless pressure, and the delicate, fragile hope for something better. Every morning, I wake up to the same gnawing weight pressing on my chest, a kind of invisible burden that never really lifts. It's not just the usual stress everyone talks about, the kind that comes and goes. This is different. It's a relentless pressure born from numbers on a screen, bills stacking up, and a paycheck that somehow feels smaller every month despite working full-time. It's the feeling of being trapped in a system that's designed to keep you just barely afloat, always chasing your own tail as expenses grow faster than income, no matter how hard you try. I'm 27 now, living in a small apartment in the city I love, but the cost of everything, from rent to groceries, transportation to utilities, has become a constant source of anxiety. When I graduated college, I thought I was ready for adulthood. I had dreams, big ones. I imagined traveling, maybe moving somewhere quieter, saving enough to start a little business on the side. But reality hit like a wave, and since then, it's been a day-to-day balancing act of keeping the lights on, food on the table, and trying not to drown in debt. The economic environment feels like this invisible storm cloud hovering over every decision I make. For example, choosing what to eat is no longer about what I want or what's good for me, it's about what's cheapest. Fresh vegetables and fruits? Too expensive. That bag of frozen mixed veggies or canned beans is my go-to because they last longer and don't hurt the wallet as much. I remember when I could splurge on organic food or go out with friends for dinner without worrying. Now, even the thought of ordering takeout makes my stomach twist with guilt. Transportation is another daily dilemma. Owning a car is a luxury I can't afford with rising gas prices, insurance, and maintenance. So I rely on public transit, which itself has gotten more expensive and less reliable. Sometimes I consider biking, but weather and safety concerns get in the way. Every time I swipe my transit card or refill it online, there's that small pang of frustration because it's just another cost that eats into the little disposable income one have left. My rent takes up more than half my monthly paycheck. When I first signed the lease 2 years ago, it was already a stretch, but now rent hikes have pushed it even higher. I've talked to my landlord about possibly extending the lease at a fixed rate, but he says the market is tight and prices keep going up. So, I'm stuck paying more and more for a place that doesn't even feel like home anymore. Sometimes, in the silence of the night, I lie awake wondering if I'll ever be able to afford a place of my own, a space where I can breathe and build something stable. Debt is another shadow following me everywhere. Student loans from undergrad and a short-term certificate program I took to boost my skills. Credit card balances creeping up from emergencies and those few times I let myself buy something small, a treat to remind myself I'm still human. The interest rates feel like chains tightening with every payment I miss or can't make in full. I'm constantly juggling payments, shifting money around, praying I don't slip into late fees or worse. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I try to stay positive, but there's a dull ache that comes from feeling like no matter how much I hustle, it's never enough. It's hard not to internalize the struggle, to not feel like a failure when the system seems so rigged against people like me. Social media doesn't help either, seeing friends post about promotions, vacations, new gadgets, or just normal weekends out, while I count pennies, feels isolating. It's like I'm watching life happen for everyone else but me. Coping with this pressure means learning to live with constant uncertainty. I try to find small joys, a good book from the library, a long walk in the park, connecting with friends over a cheap cup of coffee. I've started meditating, trying to quiet the noise in my head. And sometimes, when it gets really bad, I allow myself to cry. Not because I'm weak, but because it's the only release that feels real. I also talk openly with a few close friends who get it, who understand that financial stress isn't just math, it's emotional labor. But hope still flickers, however faint. I hold on to dreams I've had to postpone, maybe indefinitely, but they keep me going. I dream of starting my own small business someday, maybe something creative, something that lets me be my own boss and not tied to minimum wage jobs with no benefits. I want to travel, see the world beyond these city limits, meet new people, experience different cultures. I want to be able to save for a future without fear, maybe even start a family one day without the constant dread of money slipping through my fingers. Sometimes I wonder if I'm naive for still believing in those dreams. The economic landscape feels so unforgiving, so cold. But I also know that giving up on hope is the real defeat. So I plan in small steps, saving a few dollars when I can, learning new skills online to improve my job prospects, keeping an eye on freelance opportunities. I remind myself that this season of life is tough but not forever. It's a strange mix of resilience and vulnerability, trying to stay strong in a system that chips away at you daily, while being honest with yourself about how hard it is. I wish more people understood that financial pressure isn't just a number or a spreadsheet, it's a lived experience, one that shapes who I am, how I see the world, and how I move through it. Most days, I feel like I'm swimming upstream, exhausted and unsure if I'll ever reach calmer waters. But I keep going. Because despite everything, I still want to believe there's a life beyond just surviving, a life where I can thrive, create, and finally breathe freely. That hope, fragile as it is the only thing I hold on to when the weight feels too heavy to carry. I never thought I'd feel this way, like I'm running on a treadmill that's speeding up, but the finish line keeps moving further away. I'm 26, working a steady job, and yet somehow, I'm still drowning in this endless cycle of bills, expenses, and stress. It's not just about money, it's about feeling trapped in a system that doesn't seem built for people like me, where everything costs more, but my paycheck stays the same. The weight of it all crushes me some days, and I'm tired of pretending I'm okay when I'm not. It starts every month with the rent. My tiny apartment in a part of town that's slowly gentrifying costs nearly half my income. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just paying for a place that's more investment opportunity than home. After rent, it's groceries, utilities, phone bills, and the ever-growing list of necessities that somehow aren't optional anymore, like health insurance, car insurance, and a small emergency fund that feels more like a distant dream than reality. Even when I try to cut back, prices creep up. A gallon of milk that used to cost a couple of bucks is now almost double. The gas in my car, which I need to get to work, climbs steadily. Every dollar feels like it's being squeezed tighter and tighter. I remember when I first got my job straight out of college. I thought I was doing well, finally earning a steady paycheck, maybe even save a little for fun or for a future I imagined. But that future keeps getting pushed back. I had dreams once, traveling to new countries, buying a home, maybe even starting my own business someday. Now, I'm lucky if I can scrape together enough to replace my worn-out shoes or see a dentist without panicking about the cost. The dreams feel like luxury items, out of reach and maybe even foolish to hold on to in this climate. The emotional toll is relentless. There's this gnawing anxiety that never really goes away. Every time I hear about inflation rising or the economy slipping, I feel a cold knot in my stomach. It's the fear that the little I have will never be enough. I avoid answering calls sometimes because they're often bills or reminders of what I owe. I've become an expert at budgeting, tracking every cent, but it feels like no matter how careful I am, it's not enough. Social life is a casualty, too. I avoid hanging out with friends because I can't afford the dinners, drinks, or trips that seem to keep everyone else connected. When they talk about their weekend plans, I nod and smile, but inside, I'm shrinking a little more. The loneliness creeps in quietly. I don't want to be a burden, so I keep my struggles to myself, even though I wish I could talk openly about how exhausting it all is. Sometimes I feel ashamed, as if my financial struggles are a personal failure rather than a symptom of a broken system. Work offers some respite but also reminds me of my limits. I'm grateful to have a job, but the pay raises barely keep pace with the rising cost of living. Overtime isn't always an option, and even if it were, my energy is finite. After long days, I come home drained, trying to muster the motivation to cook something simple or deal with bills rather than unwind or dream. Sleep is restless, filled with worry and what-ifs. Sometimes I catch myself fantasizing about a different life, the one where money isn't a constant source of stress. A life where I can say yes to opportunities without second-guessing the cost. Where I don't have to weigh every decision against a backdrop of financial strain. I imagine waking up without that heavy weight on my chest, breathing a little easier, feeling a little freer. But then reality hits. I remind myself that I'm doing the best I can. That resilience isn't about never falling, it's about getting up every day, even when the system seems rigged. I find small ways to cope, long walks that clear my mind, cooking meals from scratch to stretch my budget, leaning on a few close friends who understand without judgment. I celebrate tiny victories, like paying off a credit card or finally replacing a broken appliance without taking on more debt. Still, the future feels uncertain. The world keeps shifting, and I keep adapting, but the fear lingers. Will this ever get easier? Will I ever feel financially secure enough to chase the dreams I've had since I was a kid? Or will I be stuck here, just trying to survive month to month? I don't have answers. I just have this story, one of quiet struggle, resilience, and hope that maybe, someday, the system will change enough that people like me can breathe, live fully, and finally dream without limits. Until then, I'll keep walking forward, one careful step at a time. I never imagined that by the time I hit my late 20s, I'd feel this exhausted just from trying to keep up with life. It's like I'm running a race where the finish line keeps moving further away, and no matter how fast I sprint, I'm stuck on this endless treadmill of bills, rent, groceries, and all the little expenses that never seem to stop growing. I want to be honest about how it feels, to be caught in this financial squeeze that wraps tighter every month, squeezing the air out of my dreams and my peace of mind. When I graduated college, I was hopeful. Not naive, but hopeful. I had this vision of moving out on my own, maybe renting a small apartment in the city, working a steady job, building a life. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but I thought if I just worked hard, lived within my means, and saved a bit, I'd be okay. But the truth is, the world I stepped into didn't play by those rules. Rent skyrocketed. The cost of food went up. Gas prices jumped. Even the basics, electricity, internet, phone, felt like luxuries eating into my paycheck. Every month, I would sit down with my budget, hoping to find some extra cushion, some place to cut back, but it always felt like the numbers were laughing at me. There's this constant feeling of being trapped in a system that wasn't designed with people like me in mind. Where expenses grow faster than income, and the gap keeps widening no matter what you do. It's not just the money, it's the mental weight of it. I wake up some mornings already tired, dreading the day because I know it's another day of balancing the impossible. Should I buy groceries or put a little extra toward my credit card? Can I afford to fill my tank this week, or do I have to squeeze out another week on empty? These aren't decisions I ever thought would dominate my life, but they do. I work full-time, and yet every paycheck feels like a mirage. There's a small sliver that goes toward rent, another chunk swallowed by bills, and whatever's left barely stretches into the next week. I try to keep track, but sometimes it feels like the numbers blur together. I live in a tiny apartment that leaks cold air in the winter, and I'm constantly debating whether to crank up the heat or wear layers inside just to save a few bucks. Sometimes, I skip meals, not because I want to, but because when push comes to shove, food has to compete with rent, and rent always wins. Emotionally, it's draining. There's a quiet shame in admitting you're struggling when, on the outside, you're supposed to have it all figured out. Friends talk about buying homes, traveling, investing, and I nod along, hiding the truth that I'm barely keeping my head above water. Social events are another challenge. Do I say yes and risk overspending, or do I say no and feel isolated? I've gotten pretty good at smiling and making excuses, but inside, there's this growing loneliness. It's hard to explain, but financial stress isn't just about money, it's about feeling invisible and stuck, like your worth is tied to the dollars you don't have. I cope the best I can. I've learned to live with less, to find small joys in cheap or free things, a walk in the park, a good book from the library, cooking simple meals instead of eating out. I lean on routines, because structure gives me a sense of control. Some nights, I write down my worries, even if there's no immediate solution. And sometimes, I allow myself a moment to cry, because holding it all in doesn't make it better. Despite all this, I haven't lost my hope completely. I still dream, quietly, carefully. I think about a future where I'm not counting pennies every single day. A future where I can travel without anxiety, where I can buy a small home or maybe even start a family without fear gnawing at me. But those dreams feel far away, pushed aside by the harsh reality I'm living. I've had to postpone plans for education, for self-care, even for seeing doctors when I need them, because the budget just doesn't allow. And that hurts, maybe more than I want to admit. Sometimes, I wonder what it would take to break free from this cycle. Is it a better job? More education? A change in the economy? Or is the system itself broken, designed to keep people like me on the edge? I don't have answers, just questions and a stubborn hope that maybe one day, things will be different. For now, I keep moving forward, even if it's one small step at a time, trying to remind myself that I'm more than my bank account, that my struggles don't define me. This story isn't unique. I know that. There are millions of people like me, caught in the same relentless squeeze, trying to survive and hoping to live. And maybe by sharing this, I'm not just being honest with myself, I'm reaching out to anyone else who feels trapped, anyone who's been too tired or too scared to say it out loud. You're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, that's the first step towards something better. Because beneath the weight of financial pressure, beneath the fear and exhaustion, there's still a spark, a hope that one day, life will be more than just surviving. That one day, I'll breathe easier, dream bigger, and finally feel free. I never thought I'd find myself stuck in this endless loop, where every paycheck feels like a small victory, but the mountain of expenses only grows taller, heavier. It's like trying to fill a bucket full of holes, no matter how much water I pour in, it just keeps leaking out. Some days, the weight of it all feels unbearable, and yet, I have to keep going. Because what choice do I really have? I'm 27, and most of my friends seem to be moving forward, buying their first homes, traveling, even starting families. Meanwhile, I'm counting every cent, clipping coupons, and wondering if I should skip dinner to make rent next month. The economic environment is a storm I didn't ask to be caught in. Inflation climbs like a relentless tide, and wages barely budge. Rent, utilities, groceries, everything seems to be moving in one direction only, and that's up. I work full-time, sometimes picking up extra shifts when I can, but it rarely changes the outcome. The paycheck arrives, and within days, it's all allocated: rent, bills, a few dollars for transportation, and if I'm lucky, maybe enough left over for a modest meal out or to replace a worn-out pair of shoes. But that's the thing, these small comforts are often sacrificed. I've learned to live without, or at least push those desires to the back of my mind, because the reality is harsh. This financial pressure seeps into every part of my life. Even simple decisions become weighted. Should I buy the generic brand to save a few bucks or splurge on something slightly better? Should I take public transit, even if it means an extra hour of commuting, or risk the cost of gas and parking? Should I say no to a friend's birthday dinner to avoid the cost, even though it means missing out on moments that feel precious? The choices pile up, and they are exhausting. Emotionally, it's draining. There's a constant hum of anxiety in the background, a gnawing feeling of not being enough, not making enough, not doing enough, not getting ahead. I try not to let it consume me, but some nights, the worries sneak in and keep me awake. The fear of falling behind, of emergencies I can't afford, of a future that feels increasingly uncertain, it's a quiet terror that lurks beneath the surface. I remember the dreams I had when I was younger, dreams I still cling to but have had to put on hold. I wanted to travel, to see the world beyond the city I grew up in. I dreamed of going back to school, maybe studying something I'm passionate about instead of just what pays the bills. I thought I'd have a place to call my own by now, maybe even start saving for a family. But those dreams seem distant, like stars just out of reach. Sometimes, I wonder if the system is designed to keep people like me in this place, working hard, barely scraping by, with little room to breathe or grow. It feels like an invisible cage, where expenses rise faster than my income, and every effort to climb out is met with new barriers. I don't blame anyone personally, but the structure itself feels stacked against us. Despite all this, I'm trying to cope. I find small moments of peace in the routines: a morning walk, a phone call with a friend, a book borrowed from the library. I've learned to celebrate the little wins, like paying a bill on time or resisting an impulse purchase. I've started journaling to process the swirl of emotions, to remind myself that I'm not alone in this. I hold on to hope, fragile but persistent. Hope that someday, things will shift, that wages will catch up, that I'll find a path to stability and maybe even comfort. I imagine a future where I can look back on these years not just as a struggle, but as a time I learned resilience and grit. I want to believe that my dreams aren't lost, just delayed. Living in this financial pressure cooker isn't easy, and it wears on me. But it also teaches me things I never expected: patience, resourcefulness, and a deeper understanding of what really matters. I'm trying to be kind to myself, to acknowledge that surviving this isn't a failure. It's a fight, and I'm still standing. The system hasn't won yet. Not entirely. Sometimes, it feels like I'm running on a treadmill that only speeds up, no matter how hard I try to keep pace. The harder I push, the faster it goes, and somehow, I never seem to get anywhere. That's how life has been for me these past few years, an endless cycle of financial pressure that shapes every choice, colors every emotion, and quietly steals the future I once dreamed about. I'm 26, living in a small apartment I can barely afford on the outskirts of the city. The rent eats up nearly half my paycheck every month, and I still have to cover groceries, utilities, transport, student loans, and a handful of other bills. Somehow, my expenses seem to grow faster than my income, as if the universe is laughing at me behind my back. I got a small raise at work last year, which should have felt like progress, but inflation swallowed it whole. The price of eggs, bread, gas, everything is creeping higher, but my salary has barely budged. It's like being stuck in quicksand. I'm constantly trying to pull myself up, but the more I struggle, the deeper I sink. Most mornings, I wake up with this knot of anxiety in my chest. It's the kind of worry that doesn't go away even when you're distracted, because it's tied to the basics. Will I have enough to pay rent this month? Can I cover the electric bill before it's due? Is it smarter to eat out or risk making something cheaper but less healthy? These aren't just questions. They are decisions that shape my entire day, my health, and my peace of mind. I never thought adulthood would feel like this. Growing up, I imagined having enough freedom to travel, to explore passions, maybe even start a family one day. I dreamed of owning a home, not a fancy one, but a place to call my own. But those dreams feel distant, almost naive, when rent and bills take every cent I have, and I'm left with little more than a budget spreadsheet and a deep sigh. There's a strange kind of shame in feeling trapped by money. I don't like to admit it, even to myself. Sometimes, I catch myself scrolling through social media and seeing people my age traveling, buying new cars, or starting side businesses, and a sharp pang of envy hits me. I want to celebrate their wins, I really do, but it's hard not to feel like I'm failing in comparison. Not because I don't work hard, but because the system seems rigged against people like me. The cost of living climbs, wages don't keep up, and I'm left wondering if it's all a game where the rules are written to keep me at the bottom. My days revolve around careful planning and sacrifices. I track every expense, even the small ones, because small things add up. A coffee here, a night out there, a pair of shoes I don't really need. Each time, I debate if it's worth it, but often I just skip it. I miss out on social events, because going out feels like an unaffordable luxury. I cook at home more than ever, sometimes just instant noodles or frozen veggies because fresh produce is expensive. I've stopped replacing clothes until they're truly worn out. Even my phone is on its last legs, but I keep holding on, afraid to add another payment to my monthly list. Emotionally, it's exhausting. There are moments when I feel overwhelmed by hopelessness, like I'm watching my life pass by in grayscale while everyone else is living in color. The constant financial stress weighs on my self-esteem and sense of control. I find myself withdrawing from friends and family because I don't want to be the broke one. I don't want pity or judgment. Sometimes, I just want to scream that I'm doing my best, even if it feels like my best isn't enough. Still, I try to hold on to hope, because I know despair will only paralyze me. I keep applying for better jobs, taking online courses to build skills, and searching for side gigs that might bring extra income. It's tiring, but it feels necessary. I remind myself that this is a phase, that things can improve, even if slowly. I cling to the idea that the future is still unwritten, and maybe, just maybe, I can write a different story for myself. Sometimes, I allow myself to dream again. I imagine traveling to places I've only seen in pictures, or finally moving to a neighborhood where I don't have to worry about leaking pipes or broken elevators. I dream of waking up without financial dread pressing on my chest, of spending money on things that bring me joy instead of survival. These dreams are fragile, but they're my fuel. Being caught in this cycle has taught me a lot about resilience, patience, and the importance of community. I found comfort in small moments, a friend inviting me over for a home-cooked meal, a weekend hike that costs nothing but gives me fresh air and peace, a book borrowed from the library that lets me escape for a few hours. These things remind me there's more to life than money, even if money controls so much. But I won't lie, some days, it's really hard to keep going. The feeling of being trapped by circumstances outside my control is suffocating. I wonder how many others feel this way, silently struggling under the weight of rising costs and stagnant wages. It's a lonely, invisible battle. In the end, I hope that sharing my story helps break the silence around these struggles. Not just for me, but for anyone who's felt stuck in this endless loop. We deserve to dream, to live fully, and to break free from systems that keep us trapped. Until then, I'll keep fighting, one small step at a time, holding on to hope and the possibility of better days. I never thought I'd feel this way at 27. Not this constant weight, that dull, relentless pressure that sits heavy on my chest every time I open my bank app or glance at a bill. It's like I'm stuck in a loop where no matter how hard I work or how careful I try to be, my money just disappears. Faster than it comes in. It's exhausting. Every month feels like a race I'm always losing. Rent alone is a beast, the kind that makes your paycheck scream before it even lands. Utilities, groceries, phone, internet, student loan payments, transportation. All those things that used to seem manageable when I was younger now feel like an impossible mountain. And it's not just the basics. Sometimes there's a car repair or a medical bill that throws everything out of balance. I remember last winter, my heater broke down, and I had to decide whether to pay for a temporary fix or eat less for a couple of weeks. I chose the heater because freezing isn't an option, but the guilt from eating less stuck with me for weeks. What's worse is how the cost of everything just keeps climbing, rent hikes, grocery prices inching higher every time I shop, gas that seems to go up overnight. Meanwhile, my income stays stubbornly the same, sometimes barely keeping pace with inflation, but never really ahead of it. Raises and bonuses feel like rare miracles. Promotions come with more responsibility, not necessarily more pay. It's like the system is designed so that no matter how much effort I put in, I'm always scrambling to just stay afloat. Sometimes I lie awake at night wondering if I'm the only one who feels trapped like this. I scroll through social media, seeing people traveling, buying homes, starting families. It hits me hard, the contrast between their lives and mine. Not that I begrudge anyone else's happiness, but it makes my own situation feel all the more isolating. Like I'm missing out on the milestones I dreamed about. I remember when I was a kid, I imagined I'd have a cozy apartment of my own, maybe a little dog, occasional weekend trips, and enough savings to feel secure. Now, those dreams seem like distant galaxies, beautiful but unreachable. The emotional toll is relentless. There's this gnawing anxiety that never really leaves me. It shows up in the pit of my stomach every time I check the mailbox, hoping it's not another late notice or a credit card statement with an ominous number. I feel a kind of shame, too, even though I know logically it's not my fault. It's hard to explain, but living paycheck to paycheck makes you feel like you're failing, even when you're doing everything you can. I try to cope in small ways. I've become a coupon clipper, a sale stalker, a meal prepper. I stretch every dollar as far as it will go. I've learned to find joy in little things, a good book borrowed from the library, free community events, cooking at home instead of eating out. I've also gotten better at saying no to invitations when money is tight, even if it means missing out on moments with friends. It's lonely sometimes, but I try to remind myself that it's temporary. Then there are the nights when the loneliness and worry catch up with me, and I just want to scream into the void. Why is it so hard? Why is life designed this way, where so many of us are caught in this endless struggle? It's hard not to get bitter, but I also hold on to hope. Hope that someday I'll break free, maybe through a better job, or a side hustle that actually pays off, or some unexpected opportunity. I imagine what it would feel like to breathe easy, to not have to budget every cent, to plan for the future without fear. I think about what I'd do if money wasn't always the first thing on my mind. I'd finally go back to school for that degree I shelved years ago. I'd travel, not just the weekend getaway but somewhere far, where I could experience new cultures and recharge my spirit. I'd invest in my health, my hobbies, and maybe even save enough to start a family without this gnawing fear in the background. But for now, I take it day by day. Sometimes hour by hour. I remind myself that I'm more than my bank balance, more than my struggles. That my worth isn't tied to my paycheck or my credit score. I cling to the small victories, a bill paid on time, a week without unnecessary spending, a night spent laughing with friends even if I can't afford much. It's not glamorous or easy. It's real, and it's raw. And maybe by sharing this, I can remind someone else out there they're not alone. Because if I've learned anything, it's that these struggles are not just personal failures, they're a symptom of a system that needs to change. Until then, I'll keep fighting, keep hoping, and keep believing that one day, this pressure will ease, and I'll find the breathing room I so desperately need. Hey, friends! If you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. Sometimes it feels like I'm living inside a shrinking box, where the walls keep closing in just a little more every month. It's not a dramatic thing, no one's yelling, no one's pushing me, but the pressure is there, constant and quiet, like a weight that never lifts. I'm 26, working a full-time job that pays the bills but leaves very little breathing room. And every time I look at my bank account, I get this sinking feeling, like I'm watching my future slip away bit by bit. Growing up, I always thought that if you worked hard, things would work out. That you'd get a decent job, pay your rent, maybe save a little, and eventually have enough to live comfortably. But the reality? It's way messier and harsher than any of that. The rent in my city has climbed so fast that I can barely keep up, even with roommates splitting costs. Groceries, utilities, transportation, everything seems to creep higher every month. And my paycheck? It's basically frozen in place. A raise here and there, sure, but nothing close to what inflation demands. I remember the day I realized just how trapped I was. I'd gotten a small bonus at work and decided to treat myself to something nice, maybe a dinner out or a new jacket. But when I sat down and did the math, rent, bills, groceries, transit card, student loan payment, there was almost nothing left. The bonus didn't stretch far at all. I canceled my plans and ordered ramen at home instead, again. There's a dull kind of desperation in moments like that, a quiet disappointment that digs under your skin. It's not just the money, it's what the money represents: freedom, choice, possibility. When every dollar is spoken for before you even get it, it's like you're just surviving, not living. And that's the hardest part. I sometimes try to explain this to friends and family, but it feels like they don't fully get it. They say things like, just budget better, or why don't you find a second job? Like it's that simple. But budgeting is a tightrope walk where even one unexpected expense, a medical bill, a broken phone, a friend needing help, sends you tumbling. And second jobs? I tried that once. I worked evenings and weekends, barely sleeping. My body ached, and my mind was foggy. The money helped, sure, but the exhaustion wasn't sustainable. I had to choose between survival and sanity. The emotional toll is enormous. There are nights when I lie awake, staring at the ceiling, feeling this gnawing anxiety about what comes next. Will I make rent next month? Will my car break down? Will my health insurance cover that checkup I need? Sometimes it feels like the system is designed to keep me just one step behind. No matter how hard I work, I'm always running to catch up. I've had to postpone dreams, too, dreams that once felt so close, now feel like distant stars. I wanted to travel, to see new places and meet new people. Instead, I'm here, counting pennies. I wanted to go back to school, maybe get a degree that could open doors. But the cost, the time, the risk, it's all too much right now. I even put off getting therapy for a long time because I thought I couldn't afford it. That was probably a mistake, but it's hard to justify spending on yourself when rent is overdue. Despite all this, I try to find little ways to cope. Sometimes it's binge watching a show that makes me laugh, even if it's just for a few hours. Other times, it's walking through the park and reminding myself that not every moment has to be about money or survival. I try to lean on friends when I can, even if it's just to vent or to share a cheap meal. There's a quiet strength in knowing I'm not entirely alone. Still, the pressure never fully lets up. Every new bill, every price increase feels like a reminder that the box is getting smaller. And yet, I hold on to hope. Maybe one day, this will change. Maybe I'll get that raise, that new opportunity, or find a way out of this endless cycle. I try to believe that the dreams I've had to postpone aren't gone forever, just delayed. It's hard to stay hopeful when you're living paycheck to paycheck, but I remind myself that this is just one chapter in a much longer story. I want to believe that my story will have moments of joy, freedom, and peace. Until then, I'll keep pushing forward, even if the walls are closing in, because giving up isn't really an option. Not for me, and not for the future I still dream about. This is my reality, not glamorous, not heroic, just honest and human. And maybe by sharing it, I can remind someone else out there that they're not alone in feeling trapped by a system that demands so much and gives so little. It's a strange feeling, being stuck in a loop where no matter how hard you push, you're barely moving forward. Every day I wake up knowing that the numbers just don't add up the way they should. My paycheck feels like a tiny boat trying to stay afloat in a sea that's always growing rougher. Expenses, bills, unexpected costs, they keep rising, faster than anything I can realistically keep pace with. I'm 26 now, and most of my friends seem to be inching toward stability. Some are buying cars, others renting places they actually like, a few are even talking about starting families. Meanwhile, I'm still trying to figure out how to cover rent and groceries without sinking into more debt. The economic environment isn't just some abstract thing I hear about on the news or read in headlines, it's a daily weight, pressing on my chest every time I swipe my card or open an app to check my bank balance. The rent alone takes more than half my income. I live in a small studio apartment, barely enough space for a bed and a tiny desk where I try to work on side projects. It's not just the rent, utilities keep creeping up, and gas prices make every trip a little more painful on the wallet. Groceries are a daily decision I agonize over. Do I buy fresh vegetables or bulk canned goods? Do I treat myself to a coffee, or save those few bucks to cover the cost of laundry? I work a steady 9 to 5 at a company that's doing well, but the pay increases are pitiful, if they come at all. Inflation is the silent thief that eats away at my salary's value, and I'm left juggling what feels like a shrinking paycheck. Sometimes I wonder if the system is designed this way, keeping people like me perpetually struggling, just close enough to the edge to keep us working hard but never really catching a break. It's exhausting, this constant balancing act. I've learned to live on the edge of minimalism, not because I want to, but because I have to. Every purchase feels like a calculation. Will this add stress or relieve it? Do I really need this, or is it just a fleeting want? Even social plans are budgeted carefully. A night out means skipping lunch or eating leftovers for 2 days to justify the cost. It's not fun, it's survival. The emotional toll is hard to describe. I carry a low hum of anxiety that never fully switches off. It creeps into my thoughts at odd moments, while waiting in line, trying to sleep, or scrolling through social media, watching peers flaunt their new gadgets or vacations. Sometimes I feel ashamed, like I'm failing somehow, even though I know logically that this is just the reality for so many people now. Still, the loneliness of feeling trapped in financial uncertainty is real. There have been moments where the stress got so heavy that I thought about giving up on my dreams entirely. I've always wanted to go back to school, maybe study graphic design or writing, but tuition is a mountain I can't climb right now. The idea of carrying more debt feels suffocating. Side projects and hobbies that once felt like creative outlets have become reminders of how little time and money I have to invest outside of work and basic needs. Some days, I try to find small victories, like cooking a decent meal from scratch or discovering a free online course to learn something new. These moments feel like tiny rebellions against the system that wants to keep me just barely surviving. I cling to the hope that if I keep pushing, things will eventually improve, that the economy will stabilize, that I might find a better paying job or some unexpected opportunity. But hope is a fragile thing. It's easy to get lost in the frustration, to feel invisible within a system that seems indifferent to individual struggle. There's a deep sadness in watching time slip by, knowing that some parts of life, the carefree weekends, spontaneous trips, or even a comfortable home, are dreams I've had to shelve indefinitely. Still, I remind myself that this isn't the whole story. I'm more than my bank balance or my financial constraints. I'm learning resilience, patience, and how to find joy in simplicity. I'm building a foundation, however shaky it may feel now. One day, I hope to look back on this period not with bitterness, but with pride for having survived, for having kept my dreams alive even when the system tried to bury them. For now, I keep moving forward, one careful step at a time, navigating a world where expenses race ahead of income and hope feels like a fragile thread. But I hold on to that thread, because what else is there but to keep trying, to keep hoping, and to keep dreaming despite it all? It's late again, past midnight, and I'm sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, bills scattered around like a small paper storm. The glow from the screen is the only light in the room, and I can hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of cars passing outside. I've been doing this for years now, crunching numbers, trying to figure out if I can squeak by until the next paycheck. The truth is, it never feels like it's enough. I'm 27, which is supposed to be this age where people start to settle into their lives, make progress toward their goals, maybe even feel like they're building something solid. But for me, it feels more like treading water in a stormy sea. No matter how hard I try, expenses keep rising: rent, groceries, utilities, healthcare, but my income barely budges. It's like running on a treadmill that speeds up every few months, and no matter how fast I run, I'm stuck in place. I remember the day I moved into this tiny apartment. It was a small victory, a space that was mine, within walking distance of work. I thought I'd finally have some stability, but the rent increased last year, and the year before that, and somehow the landlord always finds a way to justify it. Each increase feels like a punch in the gut, and I have no choice but to swallow it. The alternatives aren't better, cheaper places are farther away or in unsafe neighborhoods, and with my job schedule, commuting would drain the little energy I have left. Money isn't just numbers on a screen, it's the fabric of my everyday life. It's the decision to skip lunch some days because there's just not enough left after paying bills. It's the anxiety that creeps in every time I open my bank app, hoping the balance hasn't dipped below zero. It's the countless evenings spent Googling how to save money fast or side hustles that actually pay. But the side hustles never seem to pay enough to make a real difference, and I'm often too exhausted to work a second job after putting in 40 hours during the week. There's a heaviness that comes with this kind of financial pressure. It seeps into my bones. I lie awake at night, heart pounding, imagining what would happen if I lost my job or faced an unexpected expense like a car repair or a medical bill. The stress feels physical, a tightness in my chest, a knot in my stomach. It's like living in a constant state of alert, waiting for the other shoe to drop. Friends invite me out sometimes, a drink here, a concert there, and I always have to say no. Not because I don't want to, but because it's not affordable. There's a loneliness that comes with that too, as if I'm slowly being isolated from experiences that most people my age get to enjoy. The cost of socializing, even in small doses, feels like a luxury I can't afford. I try to brush it off, but some nights the silence in my apartment feels louder than any crowd. My family tries to help, but they're stretched thin themselves. I don't want to be a burden, so I keep my struggles mostly to myself. Sometimes I'll hint at it, hoping for a little understanding or support, but it's hard for people who haven't lived it to really grasp how relentless the pressure is. They tell me to be patient, that things will get better, but patience feels like a slow burn, a waiting game where the clock is ticking and I'm not sure what I'm waiting for anymore. I've had dreams, big ones. I wanted to travel, to see new places, to experience life outside this routine of survival. I wanted to go back to school, to learn something new and open doors to better opportunities. I dreamed of owning a home, of waking up in a space that felt truly mine, where I wouldn't have to worry about rent hikes every year. But those dreams feel like distant stars, twinkling just out of reach. I've had to push them aside, tuck them away like fragile paper boats that can't weather the storm of daily expenses. Coping is a daily challenge. Some days I find small moments of relief, a walk in the park, a good book borrowed from the library, a cup of coffee shared with a friend. Those moments remind me that life isn't only about money, but they're fleeting and rare. Other days, I feel overwhelmed, and the weight of everything makes it hard to get out of bed. I try to focus on gratitude, the roof over my head, the steady job, the health I have, but it's a constant battle against the creeping dread that this cycle will never break. What keeps me going? Hope. I hold on to hope like a lifeline. Hope that if I keep working hard, keep pushing, things might change. That someday, the economy might stabilize, wages might rise, and the cost of living won't outpace me so cruelly. I hope that I can find ways to build a future where I'm not just surviving, but thriving. Maybe that means changing careers, going back to school, moving to a new city, or finding a partner who shares the struggle and lightens the load. I'm learning to be kinder to myself, to accept that I'm doing the best I can in a system that isn't built for people like me. I'm learning that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's honesty. And maybe sharing my story is the first step toward breaking the isolation that financial stress creates. So here I am, still fighting, still hoping, still dreaming, even if those dreams have to wait a little longer. Because what else is there, if not the stubborn belief that things can get better? That maybe one day, I'll look back on these years and see them not just as a time of struggle, but as the moment I found the strength to keep going. For now, the bills still pile up, the expenses keep climbing, and the paycheck still feels like it's running on empty. But I'm still here. And that's something. Some days, it feels like I'm just treading water, and not even in a calm pool, but a stormy sea that won't stop pulling me under. I'm 27 now, but the weight of financial pressure has been pressing on me for years. Every morning, I wake up with this gnawing tension in my chest, like I'm bracing for a fight I never asked for. It's not a physical battle, but a mental and emotional one, waged silently every time I glance at my bank account, open an overdue bill, or scroll through job listings promising competitive salary that I know will barely cover rent if I get hired. The economic environment around me feels like a cage made of invisible bars. Expenses seem to spiral faster than any pay raise I've ever gotten. Rent went up again last month, almost 10%, and my paycheck stayed the same. Utilities climbed. Groceries? Forget about buying fresh veggies or anything fancy. I stick to the basics because there's just no room in the budget for anything else. Even public transportation costs, which used to feel manageable, now pinch at the edges of my monthly spending. It's maddening. The feeling of being trapped creeps in like a slow fog, clouding every plan and dream. I keep asking myself, how did this become normal? How did the simple act of staying afloat turn into a relentless battle against a system that feels designed to keep people like me in a loop? It's exhausting, and sometimes it makes me want to scream or just shut down. I remember a time, just a few years ago, when I thought I had a handle on my life. I'd graduated college, got a decent job, and dreamed about things like traveling, maybe starting my own small business someday, or even buying a little place of my own. I was excited, hopeful. Now those dreams feel so far away, like distant stars that I can see but can't reach. Every decision I make is weighed down by the cost. Should I go out with friends? Maybe just once a month, because every dollar counts and I can't afford to blow it on drinks or dinners. Should I buy that jacket I like? No, because it's not essential, and something might break at home or I'll need extra groceries next week. I'm constantly calculating, recalculating, trying to squeeze out pennies wherever I can. This constant financial pressure seeps into my emotional well-being. There are nights I lie awake, heart pounding, wondering if I'll ever get ahead. Or if one unexpected expense, a medical bill, a car repair, will send me spiraling into debt I can't escape. Anxiety is my constant companion, tightening its grip during quiet moments when I'm alone with my thoughts. I try to cope in whatever small ways I can. Sometimes I take long walks, reminding myself to breathe, to stay present. Other times, I dive into books or podcasts about personal finance or entrepreneurship, clinging to any sliver of knowledge that might help me break free someday. But the emotional toll is real. I feel guilty for not being able to contribute more to my family, for not being able to save or invest. That guilt sometimes turns into shame, which I know isn't fair, but it's hard to shake. I've had to postpone so many things that once felt like milestones. A vacation to visit my best friend overseas? Maybe in a decade, if I'm lucky. Starting a retirement fund? It's laughable right now. Even simple pleasures, like upgrading my phone or taking a weekend off work just to rest, feel like luxuries. Every dollar spent is a choice, and the stakes feel impossibly high. But beneath all the pressure and fear, there's a flicker of hope. I still dream, even if those dreams have been shelved for now. I dream of a life where I don't have to check prices 3 times before buying groceries, where I can say yes to spontaneous plans without guilt. I dream of stability, of a paycheck that grows in step with my expenses, not a step behind. I dream of freedom, freedom to breathe, to plan, to live without the constant shadow of money worries. I remind myself that this system isn't a reflection of my worth or potential. It's a structural problem, and while I can't fix it alone, I can keep pushing forward, making small moves toward something better. It's hard, but I hold on to those small victories, the month I managed to save a little, the time I negotiated a bill down, the rare moments I found joy in the little things that cost nothing. I don't know when things will get easier. Maybe it's years away. But for now, I keep waking up and fighting the storm, even if it's just with a tired heart and a stubborn hope that someday, somehow, the tide will turn. That hope is fragile, but it's all I have. I never thought money would feel like a cage. Growing up, I always assumed that if I worked hard enough, the rest would just fall into place. Get a job, pay rent, buy some food, maybe save a little, simple, right? But here I am, in my mid-20s, still scrambling every month just to keep the lights on and the fridge from running empty. It's exhausting, and it's slowly wearing me down. The world feels like it's moving faster than I can keep up, and the price of just living keeps rising while my paycheck barely budges. Some days, I wake up with a knot in my stomach, knowing I have to stretch my budget again, figure out which bill gets priority, and wonder if I'll have enough for the basics. Rent is the biggest monster, always looming over everything else. No matter where I look, apartments are priced like they're made of gold, and the one I have now barely keeps the rain out and the heating working in the winter. I've considered moving, but anywhere affordable means a longer commute or a neighborhood that doesn't feel safe. So, I stay, paying more than half of what I earn every month just to keep a roof over my head. Groceries are another puzzle. I used to love cooking, trying out new recipes, experimenting with ingredients I'd never seen before. Now, I'm stuck buying the same cheap staples, pasta, canned beans, frozen vegetables, because fresh produce or anything organic is a luxury I can't afford. I skip meals sometimes, not always because I'm hungry, but because I know that saving that $3 today might mean a little less stress tomorrow. It's this constant balancing act, and it chips away at my sense of dignity. Transportation is no easier. I don't have a car, so I rely on public transit, which has become pricier and less reliable. Every delay, every canceled bus, feels like a punch in the gut because it threatens to make me late for work or miss an appointment. I've thought about biking, but the city isn't exactly bike-friendly, and there's safety to consider too. It's frustrating, sometimes infuriating, to feel so limited by money in a world that seems to offer so much. I see friends posting about weekend getaways, eating out, new gadgets, and I can't help but feel left behind. It's not just jealousy, it's the deep ache of missing out on life's small joys because I have to say no more often than yes. The financial pressure bleeds into everything: my mental health, my relationships, my sense of self-worth. There are days when the anxiety is so overwhelming I can barely focus. I lie awake at night, running through every expense, every missed opportunity, wondering if I'll ever get ahead. Depression creeps in quietly, a shadow I can't shake. I try to hide it, but sometimes it surfaces in impatience or silence. My friends have noticed, and I hate feeling like I'm burdening them with my problems. Work is both a blessing and a curse. I'm grateful to have a job, but the pay barely matches the cost of living, and the hours are unpredictable. I sometimes pick up side gigs, freelance writing, dog walking, tutoring, but they add more stress and exhaustion without significantly changing my financial picture. I keep hoping for a promotion or a better opportunity, but those feel like distant dreams, almost unattainable when every paycheck disappears the moment it arrives. I've had to postpone so many dreams. Traveling, going back to school, even just saving for an emergency fund, all of it feels impossible right now. I think about starting a family one day, but the thought terrifies me when I can't even afford the basics for myself. I want stability, but the system seems designed to keep people like me trapped in this endless cycle of catching up but never quite making it. Despite everything, I try to find small ways to cope. I read a lot: books, articles, stories from others in similar situations. Sometimes writing helps me process the frustration. I've started a tiny garden on my windowsill, which feels like a small victory in taking some control. Connecting with others who understand this struggle is comforting, reminding me I'm not alone. I hold on to hope, even if it feels fragile. I hope for a future where my hard work truly pays off, where I can breathe without constant financial fear. I dream of a life where I'm not defined by what I can or can't afford, where I can plan instead of just survive. But for now, I'm here, navigating this maze of rising expenses and stagnant wages, trying not to lose myself in the process. It's messy, it's painful, and it's real. And if sharing this helps even one person feel less alone, maybe that's a start. I never thought I'd feel this way at 26, like I'm caught in some endless loop of bills, rent, and a paycheck that never stretches far enough. It's like I'm running on a treadmill that keeps speeding up while I'm stuck in slow motion. Every month, the same cycle: I get paid, I try to breathe a little, but then rent hits, utilities, groceries, phone, insurance, and before I know it, I'm counting pennies until the next paycheck. It's exhausting. It's disheartening. And it's starting to feel impossible. I remember when I first moved out on my own after college, full of hope and ambition. I imagined life would be tough, but fair. I thought hard work would pay off, that if I hustled, saved a bit, and kept my head down, I could build a future. But the truth I'm learning every day is that the system isn't built that way. Expenses grow faster than my income, and no matter how many hours I work or how tight I pull my belt, I can't seem to get ahead. I'm not drowning in debt, but I'm certainly not thriving. I'm just treading water, and it's exhausting to stay afloat. The rent is the biggest monster. It's like paying a ransom just to have a roof over my head. Each year it creeps up a little more, but my salary barely moves. I'm lucky to have a steady job, but the raises are small, sometimes non-existent, and inflation keeps eating away at whatever tiny bump I get. I see neighbors moving out because they can't afford their apartments anymore, replaced by people with deeper pockets or cushier jobs. It's like the city itself is out of reach, pushing those of us scraping by farther and farther away from the places we want to live. Grocery shopping is a strategic mission now. I used to love trying new recipes, experimenting with ingredients, but now I stick to the basics: rice, beans, frozen veggies, anything that fills me up without draining my budget. I clip coupons, hunt sales, and avoid impulse buys like they're some kind of financial poison. Eating out? Forget it. Even a coffee with a friend feels like a luxury. I'm not complaining about being careful, everyone has to budget, but it's the constant stress that wears on me. It's in the back of my mind every day, even when I'm trying to focus on work or relax. Sometimes I wonder how I got here. It's not like I made terrible choices. I graduated, found a decent job, tried to be responsible. But that's the thing, responsibility feels like a trap. When I don't spend, I'm socially isolated. When I try to save, I feel like I'm missing out on life. I see friends traveling, buying new gadgets, investing in their futures. Meanwhile, I'm deciding whether to buy new shoes or pay a utility bill early. It's humiliating and frustrating. And the emotional toll? It's huge. There's a constant knot in my stomach, a low hum of anxiety that never quite leaves. I lie awake sometimes, staring at the ceiling, worrying about what happens if something unexpected breaks, like my car or my laptop, or worse, if I get sick and have to miss work. That fear keeps me up at night more than I want to admit. I try to put on a brave face during the day, but inside, it feels like a battle I'm losing. I cope in small ways. I journal, trying to get my feelings out on paper because talking about money struggles is still taboo in my circles. I meditate sometimes, though it's hard to quiet my mind when the bills pile up. I lean on a few close friends who understand, but I don't want to burden them too much. Sometimes I escape into books or TV shows, places where money doesn't dictate happiness, but then reality creeps back in when the screen goes dark. The dreams I once had feel so far away now. I used to imagine traveling the world, maybe starting my own business, or even just having a decent savings account. Now those visions are postponed indefinitely. The idea of a down payment on a house feels laughable. Retirement? That's a fantasy. I'm just trying to get through today, this week, this month. The future feels like a blurry, unreachable horizon. But I still hold on to hope, even if it's fragile. I remind myself that this phase isn't forever, even if it sometimes feels eternal. I'm trying to find small wins, like paying off a credit card balance or sticking to my budget for a whole month. I'm learning to be gentle with myself, to acknowledge that surviving in this economic environment is a kind of strength. I'm not giving up on the idea that life can be better, I'm just learning to live within the limits of right now, while still dreaming quietly of what might be someday. So yeah, this financial pressure is real and relentless. It shapes my every decision, my emotional landscape, and the way I see my future. But I'm still here. Still trying. Still hoping. Every morning, I wake up with this familiar knot in my stomach, a dull, persistent ache that never quite goes away. It's not from a nightmare or a rough night's sleep, but from the weight of all the numbers swirling in my mind: rent, bills, groceries, student loans, gas, insurance. I scroll through my bank app, a ritual I've come to dread. Seeing my balance hover low, or dip lower, feels like a punch to the gut. No matter how much I hustle, it never feels like enough. I'm 26, working a full-time job that pays just enough to keep me afloat. I shouldn't complain, there are people working 3 jobs, people with kids, people who lost everything. But here I am, stuck in this grinding cycle where my expenses balloon faster than my paycheck grows. Inflation is a word I hear on the news, but for me, it's a daily reality. Every time I walk into the grocery store, my carefully calculated budget evaporates in the face of rising food prices. The carton of eggs that used to cost $2.50 is now $4. I used to buy fresh vegetables without a second thought, but now I find myself picking canned or frozen because they're cheaper and last longer. It's not what I want, but it's what I can afford. The rent, God, the rent. It's this monstrous figure that looms over me every month, swallowing a huge chunk of my paycheck before I even start thinking about food or transportation. My apartment is small, older, with thin walls and creaky floors, but it's home. Yet, sometimes I lie awake wondering if I should move further away, to a cheaper neighborhood, just to save some money. The thought of longer commutes and less safety terrifies me, but staying here feels like I'm bleeding money. I'm trapped between choosing physical safety and financial sanity, and there's no good answer. There was a time I dreamed bigger. I wanted to travel, to explore cities I'd only read about. I dreamed of owning a home someday, planting roots, building a future with stability and comfort. I imagined weekend brunches with friends, spontaneous road trips, and maybe, just maybe, starting a family without fear that every expense would unravel the little security I have. But those dreams have been pushed further and further down the list, buried beneath monthly budgets, surprise car repairs, and the growing mountain of debt. The future feels like a distant mirage, something I'll reach when the economy is kinder, when wages finally catch up, when the cost of living stops rising faster than I can keep up. Emotionally, it's exhausting. I feel this constant tension, a low-level anxiety that doesn't let me relax. I've lost count of the nights I've lain awake, heart pounding, thinking about what happens if my job disappears or if an unexpected bill hits me. That fear lingers, gnawing at my sense of security. It makes me reluctant to spend on anything non-essential, even when my body or mind could benefit from a little self-care. A therapy session, a night out with friends, a new pair of shoes for work, all feel like luxuries that I can't justify. Coping has become an art form. I clip coupons, hunt for sales, and scour discount apps like they're treasure maps. I've learned to cook with the cheapest ingredients and to stretch every meal across 2 days. I sometimes skip meals when money's tight, telling myself it's temporary, but it chips away at my health and mood. I try to stay optimistic, reminding myself this isn't forever, but the horizon feels so far away it's almost invisible. I lean on my friends when I can, though even socializing costs money, coffee shops, movie tickets, travel fares, and I'm painfully aware of the gap growing between my life and theirs. I don't want to be that person who's always saying no, but sometimes I have to. There's a frustrating sense of being stuck in a system that wasn't designed for people like me to get ahead. I work hard, I'm responsible, I make sacrifices, yet I feel like I'm just treading water. The economic environment feels like this rising tide that lifts no boats except the already big ones. Every year, prices climb, but my salary barely moves, if it moves at all. The promises of the American dream feel hollow when the reality is rent hikes, stagnant wages, and no safety net. I look around and see friends graduating with mountains of debt, unable to buy homes, or even settle into steady jobs. The system feels rigged, not maliciously, but indifferent, and that indifference hurts. I dream of stability. Of waking up without that knot, without that crushing pressure. I want to believe that one day, I'll have enough money to save a bit, to invest in myself, to breathe without fear. But right now, I'm just trying to survive. Sometimes, it feels like the only victory is paying the rent on time and not overdrawing my account. The small wins become everything. Despite it all, I cling to hope. I remind myself that many before me have felt this way and somehow found their way through. I hold on to the belief that maybe if I keep pushing, keep learning, keep adapting, I can carve out a better life. I try to focus on small joys, the warmth of the sun on my face during a walk, a genuine laugh with a friend, the quiet satisfaction of crossing a bill off my list. These moments sustain me when the numbers don't. I don't want pity, and I don't want to be defined by my struggles. I want to be seen as someone who's trying, who cares, who refuses to give up. This financial pressure is a shadow that follows me, but it won't be the whole story. One day, maybe soon, I hope to tell a different story, one of growth, stability, and dreams realized. But for now, I'm here, navigating the tightrope, hoping not to fall. That's the reality I live every day. Every morning, the alarm clock pulls me out of sleep with the same nagging dread. I lie there for a moment, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of another day that's already starting with a calculation in my head. How much money will I have after I pay rent, bills, and groceries? And will there be enough left for anything else? The answer has been barely 4 years now, and it's crushing. I'm 27, working 2 jobs, and yet somehow, it never feels like enough. The cost of living climbs relentlessly, like a tide that keeps rising, drowning every bit of progress I try to make. Rent has shot up twice in the last year alone. Groceries cost more than they used to. Utilities, phone bills, insurance, all creeping higher with each cycle. But my paycheck? It's almost static, just enough to keep me hanging on but never enough to pull me forward. There's this constant, gnawing feeling of being trapped, Like I'm stuck in a loop where expenses outpace income, and I'm running hard just to stay in the same place. The system feels rigged against people like me. I wasn't born into money, and every step forward feels like pushing a boulder uphill, only for it to roll back down overnight. I used to dream freely, not just small wishes but real plans. I wanted to travel, move to a city where opportunity buzzes on every street corner, maybe even save enough to start my own business. But those dreams have been parked in a far corner of my mind, collecting dust. To even think about extra expenses feels irresponsible when just paying the essentials is a daily challenge. Every decision feels loaded with anxiety. Should I buy groceries this week or put that money toward the overdue credit card bill? Can I afford to fill up the car, or do I need to rely on buses and long walks that chew into my already limited time? Do I eat out with friends or save the money and face the loneliness? These choices are not just practical, they're emotional weight, pressing down on my spirit, reminding me that I'm constantly compromised. Some days, the pressure boils over into panic. I lie awake at night, heart racing, wondering if I'll lose my apartment, if an unexpected bill will ruin me, or if my health will fail and send me spiraling even further. The stress chips away at me, creating an exhaustion that no amount of sleep can cure. I find myself withdrawing, pretending to be okay when inside, I'm fraying at the edges. Coping has become a patchwork of small acts. I clip coupons, shop sales obsessively, and rely on cheaper, less nutritious food options. I try to squeeze in freelance gigs when I can, but the competition is fierce and pay is low. I lean on friends and family when possible, but I hate asking for help because I don't want to be a burden. At night, sometimes I just cry quietly in the dark, not because I expect anything to change immediately, but because I need to release the weight of it all, even if just for a moment. I keep telling myself to hold on. To keep going. Because even though the system feels suffocating, I want to believe there's a way out. I want to believe that someday, the rising tide of costs will slow, that wages will catch up, that I can stop making these impossible trade-offs. I want to have enough energy to pursue those postponed dreams, maybe going back to school, starting a small side project, or even just having a weekend off without financial guilt gnawing at me. But right now, it's a daily grind, a careful balancing act where one unexpected expense can throw everything into chaos. It's a feeling of being stuck in quicksand, trying desperately to pull myself out, but the more I struggle, the deeper I sink. And yet, beneath all the fatigue and frustration, there's a flicker of stubborn hope. Because despite everything, I still want to believe in a future where I'm not just surviving, but living. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos. Also, leave a comment, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.